Hello, mortals. I am Dr. Sombrio, and today we will discover one of the most terrifying diseases that can affect the human mind, a condition that literally erases who you are while your body remains perfectly functional, transforming brilliant people into empty shells who do not even recognize their own children. In 1906, in the dimly lit laboratories of the University of Munich, the neuropathologist Dr. Alois Alzheimer observed something that made his blood run cold. The brain of a 51-year-old woman named Auguste Deter was completely devastated by strange plaques and neurofibrillary tangles. What he was seeing was the first documented case of a disease that would steal the identity of millions of people decades before their bodies stopped functioning. The scientific name for this neurological abomination is early-onset Alzheimer's, but don't be fooled by the medical terminology. This is one of the most disturbing conditions known to modern neuroscience. A progressive deterioration that silently begins by destroying a person's most precious memories in their 30s, 40s, or 50s. The macabre experiment that revealed the secrets of this disease began when scientists decided to study the brains of young victims using electron microscopes. What they discovered was absolutely terrifying. Beta-amyloid protein plaques accumulating like toxic waste between neurons, while tau protein tangles destroy brain cells from within, creating a storm of neural death that systematically erases personality. During the early stages, the disease acts like a silent killer. The first victims are recent memories, where you put your keys, what you had for breakfast, names of people you met yesterday. But here's the truly terrifying aspect. The person remains fully aware that they are losing pieces of themselves, like watching their own identity being deleted in real time. Dr. Barry Reisberg, from New York University, conducted pioneering studies tracking young patients with early-onset Alzheimer's. His findings were simultaneously fascinating and horrifying. In the early stages, patients develop a terrifying awareness of their mental deterioration, leading to depression and anxiety rates exceeding 80%, as if they were trapped inside their own heads watching their mind disintegrate. The statistics behind this neurological horror are absolutely devastating. Early-onset Alzheimer's affects approximately 200,000 people in the United States, represents 5% of all Alzheimer's cases, can start at the age of 30. 60% of cases are hereditary with fatal genetic mutations. The life expectancy after diagnosis is 3 to 9 years, and the progression is significantly faster than the senile form. But here's where the story becomes truly macabre. In 2019, researchers from the University of Washington documented the case of a 44-year-old woman who developed early-onset Alzheimer's. For 18 months, they monitored her deterioration through weekly MRIs, literally watching her brain shrink as her personality disappeared. It was like watching a person die in slow motion while their body remained perfectly healthy. During this terrifying period, the family reported the disturbing experience of living with someone who gradually became a stranger. First, she forgot how to use a microwave. Then she could no longer recognize her husband of 20 years. And finally, she reached a point where she no longer knew who she was when she looked in the mirror. It was as if an evil entity was systematically erasing her soul. Scientists have discovered that 3 specific genetic mutations can trigger this neurological curse. Mutations in the AP gene increase the risk by 100%. Mutations in PSEN1 create an even more aggressive form starting in the 30s. And mutations in PSEN2 cause devastating neurological deterioration. These mutations function like genetic death sentences, condemning people to lose their identity decades before their bodies fail. The diagnosis of this condition can be made through PET scans that show the accumulation of amyloid plaques in the brain. But what doctors see in the images is simultaneously clear and horrifying. Dark spots scatter across the cerebral cortex where a healthy neuron should be, as if they were black holes devouring the person's personality. The psychological impact on patients is devastating. Many describe the terrifying sensation of disappearing from within, knowing they're losing pieces of themselves, but being unable to stop the process. It's like being trapped in a perfectly functioning body while your mind is systematically destroyed. In 2021, a disturbing discovery emerged from the laboratories of Harvard Medical School. Researchers managed to map exactly how early Alzheimer's destroys the brain. Using advanced neuroimaging techniques, they observe how amyloid plaques spread to the brain following specific routes, first destroying the hippocampus memory center, then the temporal cortex, language and recognition, and finally the frontal cortex, personality and decision-making. Subsequent experiments with neurons cultured in the laboratory revealed something even more disturbing. When exposed to Alzheimer's toxic proteins, the neurons do not die immediately. Instead, they begin to malfunction, sending erratic signals and losing synaptic connections, as if they were being slowly poisoned. It is a process of neural death that can last for decades. The treatment for this condition remains devastatingly limited. Medications like donepezil and memantine can temporarily slow the progression, but they cannot prevent neurological destruction. It's like trying to stop a tsunami with a sandbag. The final outcome is inevitable, only the timing varies. Current research is exploring experimental therapies like immunotherapy to remove amyloid plaques, but the results are discouraging. Clinical studies have shown that even when they manage to clear the plaques from the brain, the already destroyed neurons do not regenerate. It's like trying to repair a house after the fire has already consumed the structural beams. The most terrifying aspect of early-onset Alzheimer's is its hereditary nature. Children of parents with fatal genetic mutations have a 50% chance of inheriting the disease. Imagine discovering at 25 years old that you carry a genetic death sentence that will begin to erase your identity in the next 10 to 15 years. Some choose genetic testing. Others prefer to live in ignorance. Entire families have been devastated by this genetic curse. Documented cases show lineages where multiple generations develop early-onset Alzheimer's, creating a terrifying pattern of mental deterioration that repeats like a hereditary curse. It's as if certain families are genetically doomed to lose their identities decades before they die. The progression of the disease follows predictable but terrifying stages. First, problems with recent memory and difficulty concentrating. Then, loss of complex skills such as driving or cooking. Next, difficulty recognizing close people and language problems. Finally, complete loss of personality and the need for total care. During the final stages, the person becomes an empty shell of who they used to be. Family members report the disturbing experience of caring for someone who physically resembles their loved one, but whose eyes no longer show recognition, whose words no longer make sense, and whose personality has simply vanished. It's like living with a ghost of a person you loved. Early Alzheimer's teaches us something deeply disturbing about the nature of human identity, that our personality, memories, and essence of who we are reside in extremely fragile brain structures that can be systematically destroyed by defective proteins. A brain that functions perfectly for decades can start to self-destruct without warning. This disease raises terrifying philosophical questions about the continuity of personal identity. If a person loses all their memories, personality, and cognitive abilities, but their body remains alive, are they still the same person? Or does it become a stranger inhabiting the body of someone we knew? The study of this neurological abomination has contributed to our understanding of the processes that keep our identity intact. By observing how everything can go wrong, scientists have mapped the delicate mechanisms that preserve our consciousness and personality, revealing how vulnerable we are to neural deterioration. Today, we know that early-onset Alzheimer's represents one of nature's cruelest experiments, the systematic destruction of the mind while the body continues to function. It is a terrifying reminder that our identity depends on the integrity of neural circuits that can catastrophically fail decades before our biological death. This condition forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the fragility of human consciousness. Each case of early Alzheimer's is a window into the processes that keep us who we are, revealing that our personality and memories are more fragile than we would like to believe. Early-onset Alzheimer's remains one of the most terrifying diseases known to medicine, a condition that kills the person from within while keeping the body functioning, creating biologically alive but mentally dead human beings, operating as automatons devoid of the spark of identity that define them as unique individuals. Remember, mortals, identity is more fragile than you imagine. Defective proteins can start systematically destroying who you are at any moment, erasing decades of memories and personality, while your bodies remain perfectly functional. The difference between being a person and being an empty shell is more tenuous than you would like to believe. If this macabre exploration of the disease that erases identities has revealed the disturbing secrets behind the fragility of the human mind, leave a like to feed the algorithm that connects us to these dark mysteries of neuroscience. And if you want more disturbing revelations about the conditions that medicine would prefer to forget, subscribe to the channel where scientific truth meets the reality of neurological horror. Until the next section of Scientific Darkness.